The neon vacancy sign buzzed faintly above the cracked front window of the Silver Pine Motel. Inside, the only sound was the rhythmic swish of a mop and the soft hum of an old radio playing country classics from another era. Rosa had been working this night shift for nearly a year now. 52 years old, with silver-streaked hair tied into a bun and hands roughened from bleach and detergent, she moved slowly but deliberately. Every wipe of the counter, every fold of the spare sheets was a small rebellion against giving up. She wasn't supposed to be here this late. Normally, the cleaner's shift ended at midnight. But things were tight. Her youngest son's asthma medication had gone up in price again, and there were school supplies, overdue bills, and a half-working heater in their two-bedroom apartment. So Rosa asked for extra hours whenever she could. Not because she wanted to, but because she had no choice. The night was bitterly cold. A storm threatened in the distance. Outside, a wind kicked up dust and dead leaves, rattling the glass doors. Rosa looked up from behind the front desk and sighed. She poured herself half a cup of stale Motel coffee just as the buzzer rang. Easy tea. She jumped slightly, nearly spilling the coffee. No one usually came this late, and certainly not in the off-season. She walked to the door cautiously, her instincts alert. A young man stood on the other side, hunched over, one hand gripping the doorframe. His clothes were wrinkled, his button-down shirt half untucked, and his eyes, bloodshot, distant, fluttered with exhaustion. "Room, please," he murmured. His voice cracked mid-sentence, and he coughed violently into his sleeve. Rosa's brow furrowed. She opened the door slowly. "You okay, Mijo?" He nodded faintly, but his body betrayed him. He staggered forward, barely catching himself against the front desk. She stepped around to help him sit in the worn-out lobby chair. Up close, she could see he was running a high fever. His hands trembled. He was young, late 20s maybe. Clean-cut, but clearly not well. No coat. No luggage. Just a wallet bulging with cash and a phone with a dead battery. "Can I see some ID, honey?" she asked gently, as motel policy required. He blinked, reached into his pocket, and froze. Then shook his head slowly. "No ID. Just need a place to sleep. Please." Rosa hesitated. Everything she'd ever been taught screamed no. But something in the way he looked at her, like a lost boy just trying to breathe, stilled her judgment. "All right," she said softly. "Room 6 is clean. I'll help you get there." She took his arm, guiding him slowly toward the room. The hallway was silent except for his labored breathing. "You shouldn't be doing this," he muttered as they reached the door. She offered a tired smile. "You look like someone's son," she whispered. "Someone's always watching out for someone's son." And with that, she helped a stranger disappear into the shadows, unaware she had. The old room smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and cigarette smoke. The heater buzzed in the corner, rattling as if protesting the cold. Rosa guided the young man gently to the edge of the bed, where he collapsed like a puppet with its strings cut. He was burning up. His skin was clammy. Sweat pooled along his hairline despite the frigid air. She retrieved a washcloth from the bathroom, ran it under cold water, and returned to dab his forehead. His eyes opened for a moment, just enough to meet hers. "Vulnerable? Scared? You got the flu or something?" she asked softly, crouching beside him. He didn't answer. Just shook his head slightly, then flinched with the effort. His breathing was shallow, chest tight. Rosa glanced around the room, no suitcase, no medicine, not even a phone charger. Just a coat draped over the chair and a wad of bills on the nightstand, like someone in a hurry. Someone running. She stood and hurried out, returning moments later with a small plastic bag. Inside, a bottle of generic cough syrup, a thermometer, a half-pack of saltines, and a water bottle. "I got a boy with asthma," she said as she uncapped the syrup. "I've seen worse. This'll help a little." He tried to protest, his voice raspy. "You shouldn't. I don't want to be trouble." Rosa waved him off. "Shoo. Trouble's the guy who leaves his cart in the middle of the grocery aisle. You're just sick." He let out a weak laugh, the kind that turns into a cough. She tucked him in like a mother would, sat in the chair by the window, watched the snow begin to fall gently outside. "You can rest," she said quietly. "I'll stay a while." He looked at her again, like he couldn't believe what she was doing. "Why?" he rasped. She met his gaze, tired eyes still kind. "Because kindness isn't something you have to earn. It's just something you do." The room fell into silence again, broken only by the ticking of the heater and the sound of a stranger breathing just a little easier. And though Rosa didn't know his name, or where he came from, or what he was running from, she knew this much: Tonight, he didn't have to run alone. The room was still, filled with soft golden light filtering through the dusty blinds. The snow outside had settled into a thin, icy sheet, casting a quiet glow across the parking lot. Rosa sat in the corner chair, her eyes closed but not asleep. Years of working night shifts had taught her how to rest without truly letting go. The young man stirred. His fever had broken. The blanket clung to his damp shirt and a few strands of hair stuck to his forehead. He blinked, disoriented at first, then spotted her beside the window. "You stayed," he said hoarsely, as if the thought was foreign to him. Rosa opened her eyes and smiled gently. "Didn't feel right to leave? Besides, someone had to make sure you were still breathing." He chuckled, then winced, his ribs still sore. A long silence followed. And then he spoke, slower now, with more weight in his voice. "My name's Daniel," he said, his eyes locked on the ceiling. "Daniel Remington." Rosa tilted her head. The name sounded faintly familiar, like something she'd seen once in a magazine at the grocery checkout. "I was supposed to get married yesterday," he continued. "To a woman I barely know. My parents arranged it. It was about business, not love. They said backing out would ruin everything. Stocks, image, reputation, you name it." His voice cracked slightly. "But I couldn't do it. I couldn't stand there and fake forever. So I left the tux on the hotel floor, grabbed cash from the safe, and drove until my car broke down 5 miles from here." Rosa's heart softened. Underneath his crisp, privileged name was just a kid, overwhelmed, exhausted, and trying to find something real. "And somehow," he said, turning toward her, "in a motel that smells like smoke and lemon, I finally felt safe." Rosa said nothing for a moment. Then she reached over and poured him a glass of water. "Well, Daniel Remington," she said with a warm grin, "seems like running brought you somewhere honest." He took the glass, his fingers brushing hers. "You don't even know me." "I don't need to," she said. "We're all human when the mask comes off. You were sick. I helped. That's how the world should work." Daniel stared at her, this stranger who'd done more for him in 6 hours than anyone in his life had done in years. And for the first time in a long time, he felt something close to peace. The day had been long. Rosa shuffled into her small apartment, kicked off her shoes, and rubbed her aching lower back. The heat still hadn't been fixed properly, and her hands were cracked from the cold and cleaning chemicals. She set down a half-full grocery bag, mostly clearance bread, a few cans, and a pack of cereal her youngest liked. Bills sat unopened on the table, stacked like a silent reminder. She hadn't seen the young man since that morning. Daniel had left quietly, slipping out before dawn. He'd left enough money to cover the room and then some, but no note, no contact. Rosa didn't expect anything more. She never did. That's why the letter on her doormat caught her by surprise. Thick envelope. No return address. Her name written carefully in ink. Rosa turned it over, cautiously opened the seal, and paused. Inside was a handwritten note and a folded legal document. The letter read, "Dear Rosa, you saved me when I was no one to you. When I was sick, scared, and lost, you gave without asking. I left the altar that night not just to escape a wedding, but to find something real. And I found it in a mop bucket and a motel room with a heater that barely worked, and the kind of soul I've ever met. The world calls me a millionaire, but you made me feel human. So I bought the Silver Pine Motel, not to close it down, but to give it to you. It's yours now, free and clear. You've been holding up everyone else. It's time someone held you up for once. Keep the light on." Daniel ***. Rosa's knees gave out, and she sank into the nearest chair. Her hands trembled. She read the words again and again, until they blurred through her tears. She wasn't used to being seen. She wasn't used to receiving. Her whole life had been spent patching things. Broken sinks, broken hearts, broken chances. And now someone had handed her a new beginning. Not because she asked, but because she gave. She looked at the envelope, the motel deed inside it. A laugh escaped her lips, wet with tears, tired and disbelieving. For the first time in years, hope felt real. The new sign shimmered in the morning sun. Rosa's Rest, where strangers are family. The Silver Pine Motel was no longer the forgotten roadside stop with flickering lights and cold coffee. The rooms had been painted in warm colors, each one named after a flower Rosa used to plant before life got too heavy. A fresh coat of yellow on the doorframes, clean curtains in every window, and a coffee machine that didn't sputter when you asked it for mercy. But the most important change was invisible, the spirit. Rosa stood in the front office, watching a young mother check in with 2 toddlers and tired eyes. The woman had no credit card, just hope and a folded note from a shelter across town. Rosa handed her a key without hesitation. "You'll be in room 3, she said kindly. "Breakfast is at 8, but I'll save you a plate if the little ones sleep late." The woman's eyes filled. "Thank you," she whispered. Rosa smiled. "No need. Someone once left a light on for me too." She'd hired people like herself, single mothers, veterans, folks trying to rebuild. Ex-cons who just needed one person to say, "Yes, you matter." Her staff didn't have polished resumes, but they had stories and hearts big enough to fill the whole building. Room 6, the very one where Daniel had stayed, was now reserved for emergencies free of charge. A soft bed, clean sheets, a handwritten note on the nightstand that simply said, "Rest. You're safe here." And every night before locking up, Rosa walked to the edge of the parking lot and flipped the switch on a porch light by room 6. It glowed softly in the dark, her quiet tribute to the night everything changed. Sometimes she wondered if Daniel ever drove by, just to see. She hoped he did. But whether he came back or not, she carried him with her in every room she opened, every person she welcomed. Because kindness doesn't end in one moment. It echoes. And Rosa, once just a motel cleaner working the graveyard shift, now owned a place where healing lived and where every 3 a.m. stranger knew they weren't alone. Because sometimes the smallest act of compassion is the first chapter of someone else's miracle.